In the latest news, Sara Eisen, the CNBC host, held Kevin McCarthy accountable for spreading misinformation during a live TV segment about the debt ceiling crisis. She fact-checked him and didn't let him off the hook. During a recent interview, Quintanilla asked McCarthy about his message to the higher-ups regarding the debt ceiling crisis and how he thinks the market should respond. In response, McCarthy shared that he had met with the president 75 days prior and urged him to work together to address the issue. However, the president has ignored their efforts. McCarthy's message to the higher-ups is that if the president continues to ignore the issue, Republicans will take action in the next few weeks to send a debt ceiling increase that will limit spending, save taxpayer money, and promote economic growth. Eisen raised the question about dealing with spending cuts and negotiating with the president through the Appropriations Committee on Budget. And the fiscal year ends in September. She also asked why negotiate over the debt ceiling, which is more dangerous. McCarthy responded that negotiating over the debt ceiling is not dangerous at all, especially if one sits down on February 1st. He pointed out that the budget resolution is different from the debt ceiling, as it never goes to the president. McCarthy suggested that one should sit down with the debt ceiling, just as America has done before. He also mentioned that President Biden, when he was a senator, voted 4 times to increase the debt ceiling, only if it included fiscal changes, and he voted against it when there wasn't enough economic change. McCarthy compared the debt ceiling to giving a child a credit card, and one should not just raise the limit, but sit down to address the issue. McCarthy said, "The debt ceiling can be compared to giving a child a credit card with a set limit. If they max out the limit, simply raising it without addressing the underlying issue is akin to enabling their spending habits." The current debt ceiling is set at $31 trillion, and the Congressional Budget Office predicts that we will reach that limit within the next decade. To which Eisen, the CNBC host, replied, "You did it 3 times in the Trump administration. The Republicans raised the debt ceiling 3 times during the Trump administration without any pushback or complaints, but now they are suddenly opposed to it." It's worth noting that the deficit increased by over $2 trillion under Trump due to tax breaks for the wealthy, which is conveniently forgotten by the likes of the Republican Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. CNBC host Sara Eisen rightly pointed out that there is an Appropriations Committee and a budget in place for dealing with this issue. And instead of just raising the debt ceiling, they should focus on negotiating with the president and implementing spending cuts to address the root cause of the problem. Eisen expressed her concern over the potential negative impact on America's standing and faith in the government's credit if the debt ceiling is not dealt with responsibly. She also suggested that there are alternative ways to addressing spending. McCarthy responded by questioning whether raising the debt ceiling is a viable solution, given the increasing amount of debt and the resulting interest payments. Eisen pointed out that the Trump administration had raised the debt ceiling 3 times, including the implementation of tax cuts that resulted in a significant deficit. In response to Eisen's comment about dealing with spending cuts in other ways, McCarthy argued that simply raising the debt ceiling would not address the problem of excessive spending. He pointed out that, historically, the average revenue brought in by the government is 17% of GDP, but the current figure is 20%, thanks to the tax cuts that have stimulated economic growth. However, the real issue is excessive spending, which currently stands at 23.6% of GDP and is projected to rise to 25%. McCarthy warned that raising the debt ceiling without tackling this problem would only lead to more inflation, and cited Milton Friedman's view that inflation is created in Washington. He also warned that increasing the debt ceiling would lead to more dependence on China and harm Social Security and Medicare, stating that, historically, the debt ceiling has always been raised along with fiscal changes, and questioned why this should be changed now, given the current economic situation. He argued that if Eisen's proposal were implemented, it would lead to more inflation, bank failures, and insolvency for trust funds, including Social Security and Medicare, emphasizing the importance of infrastructure spending, to which Eisen expressed, "There is a time and a place to address the spending issue, but not now." McCarthy disagreed and emphasized that the current time is the right window to tackle the spending issue. He mentioned that the government is designed to find compromise and it is the responsible thing to do, clarifying that he is not imposing on the president to do anything, but everyone in America should realize the need to spend less and limit growth to save and grow. In addition to Quintanilla's question about what cuts would be made to address government spending, McCarthy explained that he preferred to call them savings and emphasized that the government under the Democrats had increased discretionary spending by 30%, which contributed to inflation. He argued that as elected officials, they should make decisions about where to spend money, prioritizing investments in the American economy, and cutting unnecessary red tape to spur growth, suggesting work requirements for able-bodied individuals with no dependents as a means to help people get back into the workforce and reduce unemployment. He proposed clawing back money that had not been spent and investing in infrastructure to create more jobs. He added, "I believe in providing a helping hand to those in need, so I want to eliminate the barriers that are hindering people from getting back into the workforce. Additionally, we need to claw back funds that have been appropriated but haven't been spent and invest in the American economy, particularly in our energy needs. We must also reduce red tape to make it easier to build things in America. The permitting reform that we recently passed on a bipartisan level is an example of this. I don't see these actions as being draconian. In fact, I believe they will be beneficial." Quintanilla mentioned that he noticed McCarthy's comment upstairs about the Fed, where he had said that if they had acted earlier, the current situation could have been avoided. To which McCarthy replied, "That's true." Quintanilla inquired if there was any fault to be shared with the Federal Reserve. McCarthy responded by pointing out that inflation is created in Washington, as noted by Milton Friedman. He attributed the creation of inflation to the $6 trillion and additional $2 trillion passed by Democrats in their COVID bill. McCarthy further suggested that the Fed could have prevented the rise of inflation if they had acted faster. Eisen further asked McCarthy if he had the support of his party for the proposal he was making, considering that there were some Republicans who were opposed to raising the debt ceiling under any circumstance, and the margin was thin with only 5 seats. To which McCarthy confirmed that the margin was indeed close and that he did not know if Eisen had watched the speaker. McCarthy emphasized that he believes he has the support of the American people, as well as his party, for finding a responsible and reasonable way to address the debt ceiling issue. He expressed concern over the consequences of continuing to spend more than what is earned, leveraging the future of the younger generations, creating inflation, and causing disruption in alliances. McCarthy also pointed out that the attack on the dollar and the potential risk of losing its status as the world currency lies in America's ability to handle its debt. He stressed the urgency of taking action and welcomed Democrats to work with Republicans to find a solution. Finally, he cited the energy bill as an example of a bipartisan effort and expressed his hope for another instance of collaboration. Eisen asked McCarthy about the realistic chance of his proposal passing the Senate, even if he managed to gather the votes in the House. McCarthy responded that it is the Senate's responsibility, and he believes it is possible to pass the proposal in the Senate, citing previous instances when the president said he would veto a bill but ended up signing it, asserting that he should stand up for the American public, work within Congress, and send the proposal to the Senate. And it is not his fault if they do not do their job. He expressed his desire for the Senate to be more productive. McCarthy argued that tax cuts are not hypocritical because they incentivize investment and growth in the American market. He also expressed his belief that America needs to streamline tax policies and regulation to become a more attractive place to start a business, emphasizing his personal experience in starting a business and creating jobs, and his determination to do what is best for America's future. McCarthy believes that being present and discussing the problem of the president ignoring the issue of the debt ceiling for 75 days is the right thing to do for the American people. Well, that's all the news we have for you today. Let us know in the comment section your thoughts on the word gunning between CNBC hosts and Kevin McCarthy. Also hit like and subscribe to our channel if you'd like to get more news on your feed.